You're listening to the Today's Eden podcast, episode 34. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, what is up? I hope you're having a semi-decent Wednesday. Unlike me, I am on the end of getting over strep. With the weather changing, it just will knock you down sometimes. But today I am hanging out with Robin, and we are talking about some awesome stuff. Today we're talking about her journey with infertility and how that brought her to just being grateful, and how you can become being grateful for everything because you start seeing God everywhere, letting go and feeling like you're enough. And also about, her journey through parenting, through walking with other couples going through infertility. Her and her husband went through 2 failed in vitros and an IUI, just dealing with all those emotions, the being angry, the being frustrated, and just coming to that point of realizing that she didn't want to be miserable anymore. She didn't want to live like that anymore. And, being the grumpy person in the office and just kind of, having that weight on her shoulders, having that feeling and that downpour every day of just where she was in life and how gratefulness really transformed her and her life. I feel like that we can learn something from each other no matter what faith we are, what religion we are, what we believe, where we are in our walk in life. And so, yes, this episode is going to be a little bit more faith-based, and we're definitely going to talk about scripture and the word of God and just how God has transformed Robin through this journey. So I just want to encourage you to have an open mind. If, you don't typically listen to these kind of episodes, then maybe there's some really good things in here that you can get from just Robin speaking her heart and sharing her journey, despite the fact that maybe you don't have the same beliefs as her. And so I just want to remind you guys that this podcast is not only for Christians, but it's for women. It's for anybody who has a heartbeat, really, and who is momming and who is going through motherhood, who is married, who is struggling, who is doing life. We are all different and yet all the same at the same time, and we can definitely learn from each other and definitely love each other the same despite our differences. And yeah, so I just hope you guys take away a lot from this episode, because I know I definitely did. It was definitely encouraging to me and nice to catch up with an old friend. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and let's get to it. Hey, Robin, thanks for getting on the Today's Eden podcast with me today. I'm really excited to connect with you after what seems like forever, and just talk about life and all the good stuff.
I know. I don't think I have actually seen you since before our second little people were born.
Yep. Yeah.
That's been a long time, friend.
I know.
We have same basic city, but yet not so much.
Yeah. Well, and you guys moved away for a while too.
We did.
And then so I mean.
And by away, that means we moved an hour north. Because we live the Metroplex is so big, you can be an hour away and still be in the Metroplex. So yeah, we do move around a lot, right? So yeah.
So I blame you. No, I'm just kidding.
It's totally my fault. I totally own
that. So before we get started, I just kind of wanted to give the listeners an idea about who you are and kind of what life is like for you right now. If you want to share a few things.
Sure. So I'm Robin. My primary job is mama and wife. So I'm married to my husband, Chris. He is a marching band director, and that's why we move all the time. So we have been married almost 17 years. We have 2 little miracles. Aubrey Kate, my daughter, is 7 and super sassy. And my son, Reese, is 5, and he's on his last year of preschool before he goes to kindergarten. So that's basically what my full-time job is just,
Chaos coordinator.
yeah, kind of, pretty much. Yeah. It's to do things like sell the world's finest chocolate because my daughter's determined to be the queen of the pumpkin patch or something when they sell. I don't even know. She walks in the door with all this gigantic thing of chocolate. I'm like, yay, super excited. So we get to do things like load up. We made a poster yesterday for the chocolate and she painted it with her friend across the street and it's super colorful. So we're loading up today to head to marching band practice to sell chocolate to college students.
There you go.
So
I
college
mean, yeah.
food.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to enjoy the experience of fundraising yet. So
Man, you are really missing out, my friend.
I know, I know. So we had talked before the interview about, how you had really felt passionate to share how women can be transformed through gratitude. And
Yeah.
before I want to get into that, I want to ask you, because that for you, you had mentioned started, back in your closet in 2008. So I kind of want to begin there and talk about, just starting from there.
Yeah. So, my husband and I are, I guess we'll forever be infertile.
Mm-hmm.
And I know lots of women have walked the path of infertility. So somewhere in early 2008, we were kind of dead smack in the middle of the process. It's a long thing to get to the diagnosis of infertility,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, I'd kind of reached sort of a breaking point. Like the hope that you have every month that you're going to have a baby and things are going to be fine. There was none of that anymore.
Yeah.
We were definitely just starting to do the testing, and the testing wasn't fun, and I really was not happy. And so, all around me in my life, because I was 30, so I wasn't super old, but I wasn't super young.
Right.
I was right at that sweet spot where people that I knew in my life were having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were everywhere. And what I was seeing, because when you're going through something, you see life through the lens of whatever that is.
Mm.
So think about putting on the lenses of infertility, and you see everything through that lens.
Yeah.
And what I saw was a lot of really unhappy women.
Mm-hmm.
They had babies or they had kids, and they had a great house and a great job and a great life, and these precious little babies or precious little kids, and they were really unhappy. They weren't really, but that's what I saw.
Yeah.
You're standing in the line in the Target and you're behind the mama with 2 kids, 3 kids, 12 kids, doesn't matter. She's stressed, she's tired, she's wearing one and the other one's climbing the cart, and she's super frustrated and super tired. And I would look at her and think, I would give anything to be where you are, and I would be way better at it.
Yeah.
Like, I would be super happy to be where you are right now.
Yeah.
And so I was miserable, and we were miserable. So I think somewhere early 2008, I was another one of those back of your closet in the dark, crying into a pillow because I didn't want my sweet husband to hear me crying again.
Yeah.
The men just really, God bless them, they just want to fix it and they can't. And so I'm angry with God. Up until that point, everything in my life had been relatively easy. I may have had to study harder than some in college or worked harder at my job to memorize information or something like that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, my life had been pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Anything I wanted, we had done. Anything I'd wanted to earn or work hard for, I had achieved. And so to not be able to do this one thing, no matter how hard I worked at it, was really transformative to me. So I was super mad at God. And I'm just yelling, in my heart, why am I surrounded by women who are not thankful?
Mm.
Why do I see the women in the Target shopping line who are so mad and so frustrated? Why are they not grateful for the one thing they have that I don't have? I would be so grateful for it. And God just whispered to my heart this sweet little invitation. And he just said, are you grateful right now? And I remember being like, well, no, because you giving me what I asked
Yeah.
for. Why am I going to be grateful for something? But I knew that I didn't want to be miserable anymore. I had reached that point where I thought, I can't live like this. My marriage is going to fail. I'm not going to have friendships. I'm already the worst person to be around in the office because I'm just so unhappy. I just can't do this anymore. And so I thought, okay, God, let's just see how this works. So I think the first time I decided I'm just going to step out and make a gratitude list. It was a day at the office. I went to a doctor's appointment and I got some news I didn't want to hear and I wasn't happy about. And I walked out and I thought, well, I'm going to need to catch my breath before I go back to work. And so I went to Target because it was close to the office and I got myself a ginger peach water, which Target does not make anymore. And that is a sin because that stuff is fabulous. So I got a ginger peach water, a Honeycrisp apple. I drove with my windows down and turned up some just good Beatles music that I could sing every word to and sing at the top of my lungs. And I got back to the office and I thought, okay, I feel better. There is something to this, that I'm thankful for the water and I'm thankful for the apple and I'm thankful for the sunshine and I'm thankful for music that I enjoy. And it started in that spot. And it wasn't holy. It wasn't super religious. I wasn't trying to let Jesus be the answer when really the answer was I just needed to be grateful for something in that moment. And that's what I decided to do. I'm going to take that one step and be grateful for something. And so that's where it began.
Yeah.
And
And the funny thing is, or it's not the funny thing, but I think it's like a really hard balance to like be able to acknowledge like all the stuff that's going on, like the weight of everything, but then at the same time also have this perspective of like it could be worse, or looking at things like when you go running or whatever and just being grateful for the fact that you can go running and
right.
you feel ridiculous saying that because I mean I don't know, it's just a hard thing to kind of wrap your mind around because you kind of almost feel silly about it and
You shouldn't feel silly at all. I think, several years ago, there was a blog post that was going around. It was the stop being grateful for the front parking space. And I thought, well, la-ti-da for you. I got kids that I got a cart into the grocery store. I'm going to be super grateful for that parking space. Like, I'm sorry. And so I started to think like exactly what you're saying. You think I can't be grateful for my legs that are doing the running because somehow that's not enough.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is to be grateful for everything. You got to start somewhere. And in Zechariah, God says, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line. And I just think everybody's got a plumb line, right? Everybody's got that starting point that you go up from. And so if yours is to start being grateful for your legs that are moving while you're running, or to be grateful for the front parking space on a day when you really need that parking space, then that's okay. It doesn't have to be some grandiose idea. It just needs to start. And God rejoices in the starting. When you say, God, I'm super grateful for this apple. I'm super grateful for this water. I am super grateful for music that makes my heart sing, even if it is the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I think God says, yes, I will take that because that's the beginning. And I'm going to rejoice to see the work begin in you. Because you start with the beginning, but it doesn't stay there. Like that was definitely what happened for me. Like I started in that spot, the plumb line, and slowly, it became such a practice and a meditation for me to be grateful for things that I couldn't have stopped myself if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think about a year later, 2009, We've now done 2 failed in vitros and an IUI that I thought was going to kill me. And we're in this spot where we're trying again for the 3rd and final time. And I took 3 months off in between. And those are really hard days. Even when you're grateful, those are really hard days. You're shooting up. For me, I'm shooting up 4 shots a day of hormones.
Oh my gosh.
And even on a regular day,
Yeah.
emotions can take over. But you add 4 shots a day of hormones, like there's no way you're in control.
Of like concentrated hormone.
No, you're in control of nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember the second time we were doing the in vitros after the transfer, and I was just bawling. And my sweet doctor, Dr. Kaufman, he looked at Chris and he said, "She is doing the best she can." And Chris was like, I know she is. I just don't know how to fix it. But
Yeah.
I remember being in that spot where we're in those 3 months where we took the time off to wait before we did the next round. And it was like a wintry day, and I'm in the traffic, and there's like a black ice patch somewhere where we're just sitting, waiting to go one itty bitty car at a time through the black ice. And I was going to be late for work, and so was everybody in the cars around me. And I remember looking around at the cars, and you could see the stress on people's face.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to explode. Oh my gosh. They're hitting wheels. There's some honking going on. And I remember sitting there thinking, nope. I am super grateful to be sitting in traffic right now. I am super grateful that I'm watching the sun and the snowfall. I'm super grateful that I have wonderful music here. The car is warm. And I just remember exhaling at that point thinking, okay, this is the point where everything changes. And I think at that point you recognize that you're grateful for everything. I think that's the next step. You start with something and you practice that and you were intentional about it. And eventually you reach that point where you're really grateful for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thankful that this bed is holding me up right now. I'm thankful that I ate chocolate covered almonds out of my kids' fundraiser pack for lunch today. They're super good. You just reach that point where you start to realize in Jesus, everything is held together, right? The scripture tells us that everything is held together by him. And once you start being grateful for something, you start seeing God in everything.
Yeah.
And you find that joy even in the midst of some traffic catastrophe that's making you late for work. It doesn't matter. You're going to take that moment and be grateful for what it's giving you. And to me, I thought I've reached that point where I'm grateful for everything.
Yeah. And I mean, what's the alternative? Because, you know, in something like that, and I know you walked along with Nikki and TJ when they went through this, you know, their journey through infertility, and she was actually on the podcast also.
Yeah, I heard you did a great job. Y'all were great.
And but just like, I mean, what's the alternative for any of us, whether we're going through, you know, infertility or just a hard time in our marriage or just a stressful season of work? Like, it's either you can, you know, look at the small pieces of gratitude that can daily like change your mood, your outlook, like have a million different things, or to sit in your misery and just continue being miserable. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, it can, and
it's a habit.
Yeah.
Either one is a habit, right? And in our culture, we trade stress like currency. You run into somebody at the grocery store and you're going to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're either going to answer fine, which you don't believe,
Right.
or they're going to say, "Oh, we are so busy and it's so stressed. I'm so stressed. We got this and this and this." And then there's just this laundry list of things that they're doing that they're stressed about. And believe me, I'm incredibly guilty of that too. But we trade stress as currency. I'm more stressed than you, so I'm going to one up you. And it just gets to be like a competition. How busy can we be?
Yeah.
How many things can we do? How many activities do we have to get to? And I think gratitude takes the stress, it takes the focus off of all of that and puts it back where it's supposed to go, which is on our Savior. I mean, and really, at the end of the day, all of that stuff is temporary. It's not eternal at all.
Yeah.
And we let ourselves get caught up in the complaining and the grumbling of it instead of speaking the language of heaven, which is gratitude and thankfulness. And it just puts you in that place where you're in the Savior's presence. Because the Bible says, Scripture says that he inhabits the praises of his people. And if he literally lives in your praise, then I'm going to do some praising. Like, I want to be where Jesus is living.
Yeah.
And if whatever I got to do to get there, but the easiest way to get there is to start your day with, oh, good morning. I am so grateful that we started this day. Or ending your day with, oh, Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you that we lived through this. Thank you that my kid did this. Thank you that we got to do this. Thank you for you and that you are in control. And I think that's the third step for me that I see that you make is once you reach where you've been grateful for something, you've just started. And then you're grateful for everything because you start seeing God everywhere. And then the third step is you're grateful for the one thing. You're grateful that Jesus came and he stood in that space for you, and you are righteous in him, and you are forgiven in him, and you don't have to live a life where you trade stress as currency anymore. You can live a life of victory, and you can live a life of freedom. And gratitude for me in my life is really what changed that. At the end of our third in vitro, things were so much better. Things had gone really well. We had become the fun couple in the infertility clinic because we just didn't take things change when you shift from being angry and miserable and you've moved now to being grateful and joyful. Things change.
Yeah.
You know, I have a really weird sense of humor. I'm super sarcastic, but like we had named my ovaries. I had a right ovary named Rita and a left ovary named Lulu. And we had backstories for them. And so, you know, when I would go in for our appointments, which were pretty much daily, you know, I knew the nurses by name. I knew their stories. I had talked with them. They knew Lulu and Rita pretty well. We became the fun couple, and not because I named myself that, because that's what the doctor told us, but because it just, you're grateful for everything, and it changes. So at the end of that third one, I remember we had at this point, we knew this was our last try. We were done.
Yeah.
We'd an exorbitant amount of money, and we were done. And so we were definitely looking towards adoption. And I had filled out a lot of paperwork, and we were working towards that. And the reason I could do that is because I had reached the point where I accepted God's calling in my life. I believed he called me to motherhood. I knew the exact moment he did it. And I trusted him to fulfill that calling, no matter what it looked like. Anytime I've walked with someone who's infertile, I call myself an infertility celebrator because it can be so transformative to watch God work, and you get to see miracles at a microscopic level that you just, oh my goodness. So I just knew at that, you reach that point of surrender where you say, God, I trust you. Either I'm pregnant at the end of this and we have a wonderful baby that's biologically ours, or I'm not, and we move on to the next step. But either way, I trust you in my calling, no matter what that looks like. And I think once you reach that point of surrender, then everything changes. I think you start to see more miracles than you can imagine, not because there are more miracles there, but because you are aware of the miracles now. You see Jesus in places you did not see Jesus before. And the night before the pregnancy test, I told Chris, I'm like, I think I'm just going to keep taking the shots. And if I get a belly, then we'll know there's a baby there. But if I don't, we'll move on. I don't need to go in for the test. It's fine. I don't want to know. Let's just keep moving towards being a mother somehow, which is completely fearful of me. But it's the way I felt about it. It's like there's a baby there or there's not. Either way, I'm going to be a mother. Tomorrow's test doesn't mean nearly what it would have a year ago.
Yeah. So you didn't go in?
I did.
Oh,
I
I was like, what?
I peed on a stick the next morning, and I got up, I peed on the stick, and I went to the bathroom,
Yeah.
and I put it on the counter, and because at this point in the fertility process, you are no longer buying the expensive pregnancy tests at the
Right.
drugstore.
Oh my gosh.
You're buying like the pack of 20 of them from Amazon that just come with the strip. So you're like peeing in a cup and dipping the strip in the cup because you can't afford to be buying, $10 packs of 3.
Yeah.
There's no more money for that. And I remember God just whispering to me before I knew otherwise. I mean, in a voice that is as audible as I have ever heard God speak to me. He just said, "You have done enough, my child. It's time to let go." And I did. I let go. And I was, in that moment, the freest I have ever been. And I no longer strived. I no longer sought anything other than him. And it just changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really transformative when you get to those points of like at the end or at the bottom and you're no longer able to like carry it yourself to where it's like you just can't like you just
Mm-mm.
and I think that is a lot of, I mean, I know I struggle with it. I know a lot of other women struggle with it, but just expecting that it has to all come from us and that we have to do it all, and that we have a habit of trying to make everything happen ourselves,
Yeah.
and then define ourselves by like what we can or can't do and how much we get done or how, like you said, how busy we are, and then
Amen.
yeah.
We just don't.
But
I,
it is so freeing once you get to the point of like what, like what you've done is enough and what you are doing is enough and you are enough, period.
yes, you're enough. And I'm not enough because anything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people would look at my life from the outside and not see a whole lot. Especially as a stay-at-home mom, we so don't value that as a culture. And so to see me as a stay-at-home mom, most people would see, not necessarily failure, but maybe that I don't want to work hard enough to have a job, or I don't want to fill in the blank, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't walk in that. I mean, I struggle with it. Everybody does. We all struggle with
Mm-hmm.
identity. It's not as if we wake up every morning and the things of this world haven't touched us.
Right.
But it's when you decide, okay, I'm feeling that today. I'm feeling unseen. I'm feeling unappreciated. I'm feeling unsuccessful. Those are the moments when you go, okay, God, let's do this. So I am super grateful that I get to go with my kids to sell chocolate today to the marching band. You start with something.
Yeah.
Again, you start with that something for that day, and you just make it a habit and a practice, and it's never finished. We aren't complete, and we're not done until we get home. And I hope when I get home, that's 99 years from now, and I've lived a solid, well done life on this earth. But every day, you just have to make a practice of it.
Yeah. When you decided to start practicing gratitude, did you talk to Chris about it? Like, did you decide to do it as a couple to where he could help you out, or?
For sure, Chris hears most everything. Now he did not join as far as keeping a gratitude list. Men are not wired quite the same way. Like he's able, you think of men like as a file cabinet, at least my husband. He's able to open up the drawer, put the infertility file in the drawer and close it for the day,
Yeah.
and walk away and do all the other things he has to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Meanwhile, I'm still on the floor, like wrecked in a like the whole day is ruined.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm at the office and I have run into somebody who I did not know was pregnant, but here she is with a belly and I can't even breathe.
Yeah.
And, so it's not the same for men. At least not for my husband. It wasn't quite the same, but he's definitely learned through the years, and we were at a fabulous church. We're in a fabulous church now down here, but we were in a fabulous church when we lived north. And they really taught Chris and I a lot about identity, and a lot about freedom. And I would say what God started in me, and in our walk with gratitude, and what Chris and I started learning, he definitely continued teaching us as we moved north, and went there for those 5 years. It's never a done process, right? You're always learning. And for sure, I will say this, that Chris went to lunch several months ago with some dear friends that live down here. Mm-hmm. And we had kept in touch with them when we moved north. I mean, it's hard when you move an hour north to be friends, to see each other. Yeah. But we had really made some, they had been intentional, we had been intentional, so we had not lost touch. So we moved down here. Those two men went to lunch one day, and he said to Chris, he said, man, I liked the Chris I knew 5 years ago when y'all moved, but you are not the same person you were when you left. Like, there's a difference in you. And the difference, I think, is that we learned about identity, and we learned about who we are in Christ is far more important and far more true than what the world says we are and who we are. And that really made a huge difference in our lives.
Yeah.
And we teach that to our kids. It's changed the way we parent them. Who are you? Jesus says you are this. We say you are this. And no, what everybody else says about you is not true. This is who you are. And our kids know that they are miracles. Every child is a miracle. Do you not hear my heart saying that every child is not a miracle? Every child is a miracle. But they know we wanted them, and we worked really hard to have them. And that Jesus waited to send them to us until we were ready to receive them. And I think that's been a beautiful thing too. They also know they have 10 brothers and sisters in heaven. And I kind of wish they didn't, because they love to talk about them. There was one time at preschool once, Aubrey Kate told them about her 10 brothers and sisters in heaven, and how she had a twin sister, and because there was 2 embryos that were transferred. And so the teacher was like, I'm so sorry. Have you just had a miscarriage? No. Why?
Oh my gosh.
And, out of the 3-year-old's mouth, things come out quite differently than what we talked about. But
yep.
They're interested in naming all 10 of them, and I'm not interested in doing that.
Aww. So when did you guys decide? So after Aubrey Kate, then how did you guys decide to move forward and try again?
Well, we never really stopped trying.
Oh, okay.
But for sure, Aubrey Kate, just right after her first birthday, I went back to the doctor. Went back to Dr. Kaufman. I said, let's see what's happening. And sure enough, I was not any more fertile than I had been 2 years before. Imagine that. But he said, we probably should get on this pretty soon. We're going to need to start doing in vitro again. And we probably had just enough money to do it one more time. But I had quit my job in February of that year, right before Aubrey Kate turned 1. Mm-hmm. God really, he called me home without a doubt. The man said, move. And I knew he wanted me to leave my job. And that was super hard for me. You knew me then. I loved my job.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I loved my company, and I loved being a working mom. I'm not even going to lie. I did it. I loved it. But God called me home, and it took us 6 months for me to agree to do it. Mm-hmm. We definitely had to do a lot of praying, and God is super patient. He knew exactly what my heart needed to go through to get to that point, and what needed to happen. And so I was at home, and we thought, well, we're going to have to do in vitro. But then Chris got the new job in the summer, and we ended up moving super fast. It was very chaotic. We couldn't do in vitro when we thought we were going to do it. And with a marching band director as a husband, you cannot do in vitro in the fall.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's no way. He works 90 hours a day. He's not gonna be able to drive to Fort Worth to do what he needs to do
Yeah.
for him. So we said, well, okay, so clearly we're not going to do it then. And we had to wait. We thought, well, we'll wait until after the new year. And I was working part-time from home for my company at that point. And I was going into the office, 4 days a week. Aubrey Kate was going to Mother's Day out and all kinds of stuff. And we thought, well, this project I'm working on will be done in February. We'll try and start it in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But then in October, we moved into our new house. We'd lived in this little tiny apartment, and we moved into a house finally in our new city. And on November 16th, I got my first ever natural positive pregnancy test.
Wow,
And
that's so awesome.
so Reese was free.
I mean, at this point, you deserve it because that is super. Like, Nikki went over the cost, and I was just like floored. Like, oh my gosh.
So for Aubrey Kate, all in, I mean, Southerners are not supposed to talk about cost. My mother's probably going to freak, but I don't care. It costs $42,000 to have Aubrey Kate. So she owes me a lot of money, is all I'm saying. But Reese was free. And it probably not until Reese was a year old did I start thinking about the math in that. So I went back and counted. Mm-hmm. And here's where God is so amazing. And it still gets me every time. But we found out we were pregnant with Reese on that 16th of November, almost 40 weeks to the day that I had left my job. Mm. And to me, I just felt like, there was infertility insurance at my job, which is a whole other story, but we thought we would have been able to use that. And when I left my job, I trusted God to leave it behind. I said, okay, it wasn't for me. And he clearly said that was never for you. I never put that in place for you. And so I trusted him. Okay, I'm going to quit. We're going to leave the infertility insurance behind. We're going to have this tiny little bit of money that we're going to try and save and work towards. And then 40 weeks to the day. It just amazes me how generous he is and how gracious and kind. Because it took me 6 months to quit. It took me 6 months to be obedient. Mm-hmm. And he still blessed me, even though it took me that time. And it was just a miracle. It was a miracle. So Reese is free. He's a miracle. We've never had another one. Never. That was it. And at this point, at 40, I would be surprised if we ever have any more. But it's okay. We got a boy and we got a girl. And they're super blonde and blue-eyed. And one looks just like Chris, like a complete mini-me of Chris. Again, is super gracious of God, because you won't believe, I prayed for an Evans. All of my husband's family looks exactly alike. Like, you go to a reunion, you can spot an Evans, no problem. And the rest of us that have married in, you're like, oh no, she is not biologically related to them. So I prayed for an Evans. I wanted a kid to have that, to be a part of that. And it was such a silly request, really, in the grand scheme of things. It's just an absolute selfish request. But he so answered that prayer because she looks so Evans. Yeah. She looks just like him.
Oh, yeah. From like the minute, definitely. If you were to see her,
she was born. My mother, I don't remember much about her delivery, but I do remember my mother saying this. She was holding Aubrey Kate. She said, Robin, she has red hair. And she did. She was born with this strawberry blonde hair, and it was so gorgeous. We called her Pumpkin forever because of that. And then the second thing she said was, and she looks just like Chris. I'm not exactly sure that she was really happy about that, but it definitely was true. So Reese is a little bit more my side of the family for sure. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't look anything just like me, but he's definitely more of my side of the family than Aubrey Kate is all Chris.
Yeah. What was it at like the end of 6 months that really was like a turning point for you to leave your job? Because I feel like sometimes we are called to make a change, and whether it's like a job or whatever, but we hesitate. And so I'm curious, like, what was, and especially for becoming a stay-at-home mom, because like you said earlier, and I totally agree, how kind of right now it's being a stay-at-home mom is so undervalued. And I feel like that's why some of us, when people say like, oh, what do you do? And then you're like, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And you like,
Yep.
and I hate that. So like now I tried not to say that. I'm like, it's not just a stay-at-home mom.
Not just. Yeah. Oh, I catch myself doing it all the time. I'll tell you that what happened, and you probably remember this because you did this study with us, but Kelly Mentor's study, No Other Gods.
Mm-hmm.
It was confronting our modern day idols.
Mm-hmm.
I had never considered idolatry as anything in my life. I did not have a gold statue of anybody anywhere that I was praying to. But her study really challenged me at the time. And we did it with our Sunday school class, I think, right? The girls in our Sunday school class.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in that room, lots of us were talking about how, our kids were maybe our idols, maybe our husband was our idol. And in the study, it really forced us to look behind, like find your fear. Mm-hmm. Fear is not an idol. Fear is from Satan. So you got to look behind the fear. What is Satan using that fear to protect? Then that's the idol behind it. And so for me, as I was praying through it and working through it, and this book was life-changing for me, I looked behind the fear, and my fear was not being the girl who did it all. So a regular day for me after Aubrey Kate was born would be, I would get up to do her feeding, which she got up probably 3 or 4 in the morning. Depending on what time she got up and woke me up to feed, I just stayed up. So I would get up, let's say it's 4 in the morning. I get up, I feed her, we snuggle, I put her back down. I get dressed and I go to the gym. I probably ran 5 or 6 miles at the gym. And then I got dressed and went to work. And I would be at work from 7 in the morning till 4:30 because I had negotiated a really nice schedule change. I had someone that was taking over for the afternoon. So I would leave at 4:30. I'd go pick up Aubrey Kate at 5. And then she and I would spend, because my husband was normally at work well past this. So Aubrey Kate and I would spend maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours together, just she and I, before she would go to bed at 7:30-ish. Bath and book and feeding, and it was wonderful, and I took a zillion pictures, and I loved every minute of it. And then after she went to bed, I would make lunches, and I'd cook dinner, and I'd get everything ready, and my house was always perfectly neat. Everything was clean, because we didn't really live there. We were only there for like an hour and a half at night. And I went to bed at 9 o'clock, and then get back up and start all over. And I was hand making these little onesies for her with like animal characters on them. And I was making pillowcase dresses for her. And I was redecorating the bathroom and the house. And I was doing all the things. And I loved being the girl who did all of that. Yeah. Because people say, I don't know how you accomplish all of that. How do you run 6 miles in the morning after and so for me, I was thriving on the praise of that. And I did not want to be unseen, unappreciated, and someone who didn't earn praise. And so once I realized that was what was behind the fear, I had put my accomplishments, my ability to do it all, above God. And once he taught me that, I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to do, because he's called me to it, I'm going to do the exact thing that I don't want to do, which is be a soccer mom. Yeah. And it's hard, and it's still hard. God made me one way, and he knows that I will do just about anything for praise and power and glory. I mean, if there's anything that I will thrive on, is somebody telling me I did something well. Woohoo! I'm in. My friend for life if you have complimented me. And he knows that about me. And so sometimes I really think God calls us to those places of humility so that we can see more of him and less of us.
Yeah.
And for me, staying at home is a worshipful act to a glorious God, because in my own power, I would be at a job in my power suit and heels in a heartbeat.
Yeah. But I think it's so interesting that you just shared that, because I think it's not only like detrimental to ourselves to run that rat race, but then also to other people looking on the outside, because when you're in that phase, like I totally until now knew, I like thought that you were nailing it. Like I was like, I don't know how she does it, because I was a new mom, and and so I'm like, what the heck, like how do you run 5 miles? Like I am like still in my pajamas waking up, and you're like 5 miles, nailed it, and I'm like 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 trying to fix my marriage with my husband, because we're just trying to newly married, have a baby, and so I think that like being honest about even if we're doing it well, like our struggles in it, what just like sharing, man, like real life with each other, and not trying to be and do all the things. Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that with me.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm not nailing a single thing. And I wasn't nailing a single thing then, girl. I was hanging on for dear life, but
yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. I saw, and especially with social media and whatever, I mean, we compare ourselves to pictures on social media, but we don't realize that there is real struggles behind those pictures. There's real people, real feelings, real things going on, that even though through a picture they might not be showing that, but like we're all flawed and we're all have stuff going on. So just to not compare yourself to
no, you want to find you want something to steal your joy in a heartbeat, start comparing yourself to the highlight reel on somebody's Facebook post. Oh my goodness. There's no, and I work really hard not to be that, but it's a struggle even for me. I mean, I'll say this all the time. Even for somebody who's totally sold out on gratitude and is totally sold out on Jesus, it's not like I don't wake up every day and struggle. I mean, I dropped Reese off for day 2 of preschool, and he lost his ever-loving mind today. He was screaming and crying, and I have no idea what's going on. I just don't. And I was crying when I left, and all I need to do was put on some music and go for a run. And that's what I did. I can't, I don't know what he's doing, Lord. I don't know why this is, but I'm going to be grateful that he's got a super sweet teacher who's not new to this game by any means, who knows how to deal with children who pitch fits. And I'm going to be grateful that I know my kid well enough to know that he'll get over it. He'll be okay. It's just a new place. It's new surroundings.
And he didn't realize you were going to take him back there second day.
He started crying in the house, girl. He was like, I don't want to school. Too bad. You got to do it. And a lot of that is God is super sweet to always remind you of things when you do feel confused. I'm sitting there, I'm like, what in the world? What in the actual world is happening? Because my son is super outgoing. He loves people. He loves to go places. Mm-hmm. So why is he all of a sudden not wanting to go here? Well, this is his third school in 3 years, because we moved from one house to another house, and we were there for 1 year, and then we moved down here, and he went to one school last year because we moved in August, and I just put him at the only place that had a space for him, and they were wonderful. Don't get me wrong, they were wonderful, but he needed to be somewhere else. This year was a little bit more structure, and so it's his third year of preschool, and it's his third school. It's his third time to be in a new class. His third time to meet new people. And God just sweetly reminded me of that. Like, he's just anxious and nervous and apprehensive, and it's okay. And I know it's okay. Like, God is way bigger than me. And I think Jen Hatmaker said once, God is bigger than my parenting. Like, I don't have enough authority to screw him over completely if I fully trust that God's in control, right?
Yeah.
There's parents who do massive amount of damage and live in hard places and do awful things. We see that on the news. I'm genuinely not that parent. Like, we live in a nice place. We have a nice neighborhood. We're fine. So I'm not big enough to screw up Reese. God is way bigger than me.
Yeah.
And he's loves Reese way more than I do. And I'm going to trust that he's going to be okay. And he is. I stopped back by this school when I finished running, and I was like, hey, how's he going? Like, well, he's standing in the corner, not wanting to participate, but he's not crying anymore. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's strong-willed. He'll stand there until you ignore him, and then he'll decide to get out of his funk and come out, and it'll be fine. That's just and then all of that today, and that's just a regular day. Like, I wasn't exciting about today. It should have been an easy day, and yet we still had the meltdown. And so I have yet to post Reese's first day of school picture because he won't stand next to the stupid chalkboard to take the picture. I had one made on Monday for the first day, and he's like, no, I'm not holding that chalkboard. Okay, well, do you want to do the tall one? Yeah, I'll do the tall one. So I made another one for today that was the standing one so he could stand next to it. And then today he's like, no, I'm not doing it. Okay. Well, in a row, I'm going to keep making a sign for you.
I think the best thing ever would be to post just the chalkboard without him. Like, later on, post it with him, but to be just like, he doesn't want to take, like, my stubborn child will not take a picture.
This is what strong-willed looks like.
Exactly.
Here's the chalkboard of our note that is the second day of school. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
So if you have a strong-willed child, then yeah, you can relate. Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Yep. That is awesome. Yeah. So before we end our conversation, I did want to ask you 3 conversations. And before that, I just also want to thank you for sharing your story and being super transparent about, you guys and your journey to this point. And also, just being a light for others and encouraging for others. And I know that you've walked with a lot of people who have gone through similar infertility journeys as you guys, and have been kind of a rock in their lives for them. And so you are still doing great things. And even if you say you like love that praise, like, you're doing so much for other people. And
oh, sweet.
I mean, yeah, like, I remember you guys walking like with Nikki and TJ, and just I just don't know how you guys could do something like that and just be so, like, for me, and that's how I look at things, is like, for one, I don't understand what it's like to go through something like you and Nikki and TJ and Chris had to go through together within your own relationships. And so on the outside, it's like, I have no idea what that struggle looks like. I would have no idea how to even support somebody else going through something like that. And just, man, it's just
hard.
Yeah.
But everybody comes from a hard place. Everybody has something hard. That's what I tell infertile girls all the time. Like, this is your struggle, and it bites. It's awful. It's no fun in any way. But for the most part, at the end of infertility, some way, somehow, you'll end up mothering if you keep pursuing. You may not mother your own child, and you may not mother a biological child. You may adopt, you may foster, you may be a godmother, you may be the world's greatest aunt, but you will mother somehow. But it's not like cancer. Right. Like, at the end of cancer, you may be gone. Mm-hmm. And infertility, for the most part, won't kill you. It'll just feel like it's doing it. But it won't. Now, it may kill me later. Like, my infertile friends and I often talk about, because I love Diet Dr. Pepper.
Right.
And I get all in people's faces when they talk to me about how awful it is, because it's awful. Like, I acknowledge it. It's awful. But it is not worse than the 5 bazillion shots of hormones I shot into myself for a year. Like, if anything's going to take me out, it's going to be all those hormones and chemicals I shot into myself. It is not going to be my one Diet Dr. Pepper a day. Like, it's not. But anyway, thank you. You're super sweet. We love walking with infertile couples. I get super excited when God sends us another one. And I get super excited about how God's going to transform them through it. I get super excited for how they're going to mother differently on the other side of it than they would have before. And it's just awesome. It is hard, but man, the best things in life are worth the hard things in life.
Yeah, that's so true. We actually have that conversation pretty frequently with our 7-year-old about most of the things that she's going to do that are really worth doing are going to be super hard.
Amen.
So that's hard for her to understand, but I'm like, just take it in. Like, you have to understand.
She ain't gonna believe you. She is not gonna believe a word you say.
I know.
I know.
But I can try.
Yep.
So last 3 questions.
Yep.
If you could choose one book that was the most influential to you, what would it be?
Okay, so first on my list would have to be that Bible study. No Other Gods, for sure. And I know it's not a book.
Right.
But Kelly Winter, if you're listening, you need to write a book.
Yeah, she
Because it
hasn't.
is
I didn't realize. And also, you made me really want to go look at my answers from when we did that Bible study.
right. You so need to, because that was what, a billion years ago? Oh my goodness. I referenced that Bible study so many times. But this question for me is kind of hard because apart from that Bible study, I majored in English with a minor in U.S. history and a minor in European history and a minor in communications. I read all the books there were ever to read in college.
Oh, yeah, no.
And so I stopped reading after college. I really didn't read at all until this, other than Bible studies. And I did read those. And I read so many books about strong-willed children. So many books about strong-willed children. So I didn't start reading until Reese started preschool, which was probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much of an answer other than to say this book. I don't even own this book, and I'll tell you why I can't read it without crying. But I give this book to at every baby shower. But it's You Are Special by Max Lucado.
Yep.
It's about the women. I'm going to say it wrong, but I think it's a Wimmix. These little wooden dolls.
Yeah.
And they live, and every day they get either a golden star or a gray dot. And, the really pretty Wimmix, the ones with the perfectly sanded down skin and the nice hair, and the successful ones, they get the gold stars. And then everybody else that's not as pretty and not as successful, they get the gray dots. But then this one Wimnick meets another one who has no stickers on her at all. And she's curious as to why she doesn't have any stickers. And so she tells him about Eli, the wood carver, and that she goes to Eli every day. And because she goes to Eli and he tells her who she is and how loved she is and how special she is, none of the stickers stick to her. And my mom has this book. And so every time we go home, I read it to the kids. And I probably should buy it so I can read it all the time and stop crying about it. But of course, Max Lucado wrote it so that Jesus is Eli.
Yeah.
And so we have to go to him so that the things of this world don't stick to us. And for so many years, so many things stuck to me. And if you had seen me from the outside, I probably had more gold stars than gray dots. But on the inside, I was covered in gray dots.
Yeah.
I was covered in the striving. I was covered in the determination and the pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make it work and do it. And it was so freeing when I reached that point where I just go to Jesus and I don't have to be covered in dots inside or out anymore. And I love that Max Lucado wrote that children's book. It is such an important message for my kids. And I hope that reading it to them 4 times a year when we go home, they remember it. But I love that book. That, for me, I love children's books in general because it's so precious. But that book, anytime you can speak truth about identity over your kids and how they are grounded in Christ, they're rooted in Him, and that from that everything grows. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
What was the book called again?
It's You Are Special by Max Lucado.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get that one. I didn't
just buy it and the tissues at the same time.
Oh yeah, like even when you're reading it, I was like, or giving me the summary so I could just, I mean, because when you as a mom like read something that you know is so valuable to your kids and you just want them to like believe it and you want it for them, I
Yep.
mean, you're just a mess. Like,
Yep. And you believe it, you want it for them so badly, and it ministers to you so much, and you
yeah.
just, anyway, yeah, that's it. That's the book.
If you could empower women in one way, what would it be?
This is super easy for me because along with being an infertility celebrator, I am a gratitude promoter.
Yeah.
I so firmly believe in this, and it is a super hard message. We don't believe it. We don't want to hear about it. We only talk about it in maybe November.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not a topic that we pursue. I only know of one pastor, well, two now. My pastor here has preached about gratitude, and our pastor in our previous church, he just did an entire series on it, and it was phenomenal. But it's not something we teach even. Like I said, we talk about it during November, right? We have leaves we put on the wall, and the kid writes something, and it's super cute. But it is a hard thing as a discipline for people to really grasp that it's possible it changes you. I think I mentioned I'm in a writers group, and somebody asked about book recommendations on thankfulness, and the only one that was listed was Anne Voskamp's A Thousand Gifts, which is wonderful. It is wonderful. But from my spot that I know how much gratitude changes everything, there ought to be a billion books about it.
Yeah.
Christians ought to be marching the flag of gratitude to every house they go to every football field they sit in, to every play date. They ought to be so grateful that it just flows out of them. Because when you speak the language of heaven and you say, Jesus, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for your salvation. I'm grateful for the way you love me. Fill me up with that so that I may love the others around me. It ought to just flow from us. And I don't know why it is such an unsexy topic. And nobody likes to talk about it except when we put out our pumpkins. But it is.
Yeah.
And if I could say something that is going to change your life in ways you cannot even imagine, but you got to take the step and say, I'm going to be grateful for that front door parking space today. And I'm going to be grateful for that front door parking space, even if blogger XYZ told me I shouldn't be. And that's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the times, one, I'm ready for you to write the book about gratitude. So let me know when that is available. And then two,
Yeah, I'll
and then two, like I think that we think that everything needs to be solved like so complicated, like or something so big, and maybe it's because this act of like practicing gratitude is something so small and so simple to where you're like you think it's ridiculous, or on the flip side, people view it the same thing as they kind of do like self-care and all that, is that it's like not for me, it doesn't work for me, my life is too rough, like my life is too messed up that like I either it won't work for me, I don't deserve it, or I'm too far gone to like for something so small to change my life.
Oh, actually, I love your heart about that. That's so true. And I so believe that. And I so believe that when we see someone's highlight reel on social media, we think we don't measure up and we don't have anything to be grateful for, and we can't make a difference and we can't contribute, and I'm not worth it. And that's the message we get, and we internalize it and we believe it. And when in truth, when you're grateful, and I hate the phrase when you're grateful, gratitude turns what you have into enough. I don't like that phrase because it focuses on the stuff. And while I do totally believe you can be grateful for the stuff, absolutely be grateful for the provision God has given in your life. But it's not about the stuff. It's about God. It's about Jesus. It's about the Comforter and the work he does in and around you and through you. And when you get to that place, you no longer are not enough. You no longer don't have enough. You no longer can't give enough, because God has everything, and in him there is abundance. And so your gratitude then flows from that abundance that God fills you up with.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly the fact that I am a stay-at-home mom, married to a teacher, living on a super tight budget, you know what? I have enough, and I have more than enough because I have Jesus.
Mm.
And in that victory, I don't need to strive for something else.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Yeah, that's true. If you could tell your younger self one thing, assuming that she would listen, what would it be?
Well, of course she wouldn't listen.
Right. You are raising a strong-willed child, so it had to come from somewhere,
So
right?
strong-willed children do not just pop up out of nowhere. They definitely fall from the apple tree for sure. They're both incredibly strong-willed people. But honestly, I don't think I would tell her a single thing.
Mm.
And here's why. One, she wouldn't believe me, and I know she would not believe me. And two, I don't want to change anything, because every single step, even the ones that I super regret, and there's plenty that I super regret, God really makes beauty from our ashes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I had to get to that point. I had to be that person who was striving. I had to be the person who really did believe that if you work hard enough at something, you can fix it. In order to get to the place where you realize, nope, I got nothing. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's only from the places where we've received the most grace and the most revelation from God about who we are and who he is. When that kind of healing takes place, that's when you find your calling and your passion. And, I think Priscilla Shirer says it, God makes your mess your message.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't change any part of the person I was a decade ago, even though I know I was saved at a young age. I know I loved God, and I know I tried my best to follow the rule book that I thought you had to follow to be a Jesus follower. And it really wasn't until the back of that closet when I truly understood what a relationship with him was like. I wouldn't change that.
Yeah.
I hate to think of the mom I would have been before God got a hold of me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hadn't had to wait those years, I don't even know. I mean, I'm saddened by what might have been, and I'm super grateful that it wasn't.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate to have those, because I think of even like my backstory, it's like I'm unfortunate about, where I was and what I had to go through. But at the same time, I feel similar to you in that, like, I still wouldn't change it, because if that had not happened, I wouldn't have the perspectives that I have, or have like the desire to make this podcast, or, to relate to so many other people going through similar things that I went through, or, like all these things that, to where, like, yes, it's unfortunate, the things that we have to go through that are really, really super hard and really ugly, and they're awful, and you shouldn't have to go through those things, but there is beauty that comes from the ashes, like you said. And, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and just to give you a word of encouragement, sweet friend, watching you and Dalton in those early days, years ago, and not just watching y'all, we for sure loved y'all, but watching how the people around you in our church loved y'all. Chris and I will often say, watching your story and watching how people loved you and accepted you and said, yes, come here. Wherever you're at, come here, be a part, changed us. So it's not even sometimes about the work God does in you. It's about the work he's doing in others who are watching what's going on with you. And so watching y'all changed us. And we are super grateful to have been able to stand even on the sidelines and watch what we consider to be an absolute miracle of God. I'm so grateful that you were there and that we got to see you, and that we stood as witnesses there and watched what we believe was Christ-like love in just an amazing situation.
Yeah, that's very, I'm going to try not to be like emotional now. But yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Sarcastic.
No, yeah. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, but I wanted to let everybody know before we end talking, because you are an awesome writer and you have your own blog finally, and now you should also be writing a book because yeah. So yeah. Share where people can follow your writings so they can check it out.
Yeah, so I blogged for like 9 years on this tiny little baby blog site, and then I just this past May moved onto my big girl site. To tell you how many dreams I've had about this site. Oh my goodness. So it's RobinEEvans.com. And you can find I do a whole Gratitude Friday post every week, and I write on Tuesdays and Fridays. The tagline for the blog is building grateful lives rooted in Him. And I just really want to empower people to live a life through Him of abundance and freedom that comes from truly being grateful. And I hope I do that with my writing. That's always my goal. And I'm super excited to see what God does with the message, because I do think there's a time and a place for everything, and it's got to be coming. It's got to be, right? It's got to be.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. Make sure you go to todayseden.com to check out the show notes for Robin's episode and to get the link to her blog. She's a great writer, you guys, so definitely check that out. Also, make sure you join the Today's Eden Facebook group, the Today's Eden Tribe, where we kind of mess around, laugh, and talk about how we are attempting this greatness at motherhood and also failing, and also trying to be, all the things, and just having a good time on there. So make sure you check that out. The quote I want to leave with you today is, "Parenting is a lot like the bar scene. Everyone's yelling, everything's sticky, and occasionally someone pukes somewhere they shouldn't." Ain't that the truth?